This is Charlotte Talks. I'm Mike Collins. Forbes magazine says small businesses are a major players in the U.S. economy, with over 50% of the current working population in the United States working in a small business setting. The 28 million or so small businesses in the U.S. are responsible for meeting 44% of the nation's payroll and have created more than 65% of all new jobs since 1996. Technology is making it easier than ever to start and run a small business, sometimes with a lower capital outlay, and that means more people who have been thinking about calling the shots, being their own boss, striking out on their own, starting a business. Well, they may be indulging that dream, but should they? Should you? Starting a small business and keeping it afloat can be a challenge, and you have to be ready to deal with some pitfalls. A few you might be able to predict, and others, well, they may blindside you. We're going to talk about this with some small business veterans. Kelly Swick is founder and owner of Queen of Oats. That's a small, health-centric artisan food business that sells wheat-free granola, protein bars, and breakfast cookies. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Good to
Great
see you.
to be here.
Glenn Berkins is editor and publisher of QCityMetro.com. That's an online news site targeting Charlotte's African-American community. And when he started that site, he came to it with years of experience as a journalist working for, among other papers, the Wall Street Journal and the Charlotte Observer. Thank you for being here as well. Welcome
back. Glad to be here.
Julie Haack is president and owner of Donald Haack Diamonds, a business started by her father, Donald, who was an intrepid explorer and businessman. So this is a family business that has been around for about 30 years or so and has been through some good and bad economic times. And we will talk about that with Julie, among many other things. Welcome to the program, Julie Haack.
Thank you for having me.
And Jim Weiland is Executive Vice President of Charlotte SCORE. That's the senior core of retired executives. He's also a certified mentor for SCORE, and in that capacity advises startups and existing small businesses. Thank you for being here as well.
Glad to be here.
Some of you are participating in the Charlotte Observer's Shop Talk Small Business Conference tomorrow. I'm told that is completely sold out, so our listeners will not be able to attend. But that is a testament to how many people are running small businesses, how many people want to get into running small businesses. Is there a way, and I'm not sure who to ask this question of, but is there a way to predict whether or not you as an individual have what it takes, the right personality, the right temperament, the right drive to start and continue to operate a small business?
Given we see so many startups at SCORE, what we look for is will or passion, if you want to say that. So the first thing is they have to have the dream, and then they have to have the personal fortitude to drive that dream, first to starting and then to living through the normal life cycle of a business. And as Julie and Kelly will tell you, they see ups and downs, they see valleys, they see peaks, and they have to be able to drive through that.
Each of the three people who run small businesses here came to their present position in very different ways, as all people who start small businesses do. Let me begin with Julie. Julie, you bought this business from your father. It was successful, and he had done several different businesses over time. But you, I don't think, set out to run Donald Haack Diamonds. You were doing lots of other things in your life.
It's true. I was dead set on doing something completely different, but filling in part-time for my parents for about 9 years until I could get my dream going. But in 2007, I did take over, and that was, of course, the beginning of our huge economic crunch. So it was difficult, but I echo what Glenn said about having the will and passion and dreaming. I think that perseverance is, the way I define it, is stamina and faith, and then having the courage not to fail, because you really need those.
So when did you get your dream to open this Queen of Oats business, Kelly Swick?
Well, actually, it really all started when my daughter was a senior in high school, and I was anticipating the empty nest syndrome. And that's when I really got serious about it. I had sort of tossed the idea around for years, but knowing that all three of my girls were going to be away really sort of pushed me to get into this business. And my middle daughter had a wheat allergy for years and years. And so that's where the oats came into play, because I had to experiment with different types of grains for her. And oats was really my grain of choice. So I had, over the years, experimented with many different oat creations, as I call them. So I decided I'd start there.
But when did it when did it go from being, I got to find food for my daughter to eat, to I'm going to start a business because I really want this, I want to be able to push this out to the public at large?
Well, I think like the real push was when, I realized that my daughters were all going to be in college. Okay. And I had done, full-time work for years, but then when my kids were born, I did a lot of part-time things. And I'm the kind of person that has to be very busy. So I knew that I was not going to be able to I really wanted to jump into something full-time. And this was a way to do that.
Glenn, you've been in the newspaper business, the news business for years. You should have known better. Why was it your dream to walk away from newspapers and start your own news operation?
Well, I can't say that it was my dream. It kind of came to me slowly. Long before I came to Charlotte, I started reading about hyperlocal websites and how people like me were starting local websites. And as you mentioned in the introduction, technology allowed it. And it's just something that just kind of came to me very slowly over the years. And at some point, I just decided, why not? I've always been a person who liked to challenge. I've always been a person who liked to feel he was in over his head. And this put me in over my head.
You bring up an interesting point because you could have in 1950, if that's when you were wanted to start a newspaper, a local newspaper, you could have started as a newspaper in 1950, but you would have had to either buy or find a printing facility. You would have had to go through a lot of expensive things like paper and ink and
delivery,
distribution, and all that kind of. Now you have a website. That has drastically reduced expenses of operation, I would think.
Absolutely. It's still not cheap, but it is a lot cheaper than putting words on paper.
If you think, as you listen to this show, if a person thinks, I can do this, I have what it takes, where do you start, Jim?
Plan. You've got to take the dream and start planning how you're going to execute it. What we say in SCORE is plan, plan, plan. And the reason we say that is because so often we see startups coming in to talk to us who, one, haven't been in the industry, and all three of these folks were in the industry in one way or another, so they had experience in the industry. The second thing we see is they have no concept of cost, what it's going to cost to start it up. I have a client who thought he could do what he wanted. I'm not going to name names or anything. Who thought he could do what he wanted to do for $250,000. He still hasn't started doing what he wants to do. I still work with him, and he's up to $3 million because he's gotten into bricks and mortar. So the planning has helped him back off of going too fast. And I would bet, if you ask the other three, they will all tell you they have, quote, unquote, a business plan. I'm not talking about an 18-page thing you take to a bank. I'm talking about their day-to-day plan.
Julie, you may not be old enough to know the answer to this question, but your father started Donald Haack Diamonds after having run two other businesses. For those people who didn't hear our several conversations with Donald years ago, he started kind of in this business, in the diamond mining business in South America. It was kind of a wildcat venture and pretty dangerous, and escaped with his life. He and your mother escaped with their lives, and then they opened a boat business, I think. Where was that?
That was in Grenada. I laugh when you say he had two other businesses because he had multitudes of businesses before starting this one.
I'm sorry.
That was in Grenada in the 1970s.
So I'm wondering if he actually had a business plan for Donald Haack Diamonds when he opened it, or did he just had he run so many businesses by then that this was like opening the front door?
I don't know whether he had the plan or not. I know he was aware and saw a need, and that was part of what I was going to talk about tomorrow. Is you have to be able to not just strategize through how you're going to do something, the small house and the large house, whether it's advertising or marketing or hiring, but you also have to be able to withstand the economic downturns and the larger things that are out of your control. But in doing so, you've got to pay attention to what's going on around you and what the needs are. And so when he saw a need and he knew what his skills were in the diamond industry, he decided to open Donald Haack Diamonds in Charlotte.
I would just add as well, obviously planning is crucial. But as they say about the military, the best battle plan goes out the door the minute the first shot's fired. No matter how much you plan, you cannot foresee all the things you're going to face.
Well, you saw a need for an African-American-centric information service.
Online
news service. And you saw a need for oats as an alternative to wheats and other things. But how did you know that other people saw that need?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I knew that. I think anyone who goes into business has to go in with a lot of optimism. It's kind of like getting married. You have to go into it believing it's going to work. And then once you're in there, you have to just keep working at it. It just goes back to what you said at the beginning. I've done a lot of tinkering. I've done a lot of fine-tuning, and I would imagine that I'll keep having to tinker and fine-tune because some of the things that I was absolutely positive would work failed miserably. And some of the things that I didn't think would work have been the most successful.
You're nodding your head in recognition.
Yeah. Well, no, it's true. I mean, I think like whether your business plan is I was on a webinar yesterday that SCORE sponsored, and it said whether it's on the back of a napkin, I mean, I think it should be a little bit more than the back of a napkin, but if it's a one page, as long as it's something you can work with and you've got a guide and a vision, as they say, a roadmap, you need to be very flexible with that business plan because you never know what you're going to encounter. It's it's a very new territory for any small business owner. And it's tough to know. So you certainly need a guide, but that's what it is, basically. It's a guide.
So when you say plan, Jim, is that the business plan or is that the business plan plus other things?
It's parts that feed a business plan if you were going to do a formal business plan that you were going to take to bank. So let me give you a couple examples. What are your target markets? So to answer your question, how do you know? What we tell our clients is do the research. And today with technology, it's so much easier to do the research. Find out the demographics, understand whether, let's say you're going to open a high-end restaurant, which happens almost daily in Charlotte. Do you have the clientele within the area that you want to draw from? Do they have the income that they would be able to have discretionary spending for high-end food? And you can't guess at that. You've got to do the research to know whether it's there or not. Kelly did research on oats. Did she do it because of her daughter? Probably. But she did the research on oats before she decided to do it.
Right. And also, if I can add to that, too, is that when I went out to find out, where I was going to sell these oat creations that I was making, I had to find, I did exactly that. I checked out for the what was my target market. Davidson Farmers Market was where I ended up, and it was a wonderful testing ground for me. It was terrific. It kept me going.
Okay. Kelly Swick, founder, owner of Queen of Oats, Glenn Berkins, QCityMetro.com, Julie Haack, president and owner of Donald Haack Diamonds, and Jim Weiland from Charlotte SCORE. We're coming right back. Charlotte Talks on WFAE. Support for Charlotte Talks comes from WFAE members and James McElroy and Deal for over a half-century, providing legal services and counsel to individuals and businesses. JMDlaw.com. Well, after years of building McMansions all over the country, American homebuyers appear to want to downsize, and some of them significantly so. Some are gravitating toward what have come to be known as tiny houses. These are houses that are less than 500 square feet. In fact, last year, Charlotte, was the site of the first ever tiny house conference where folks learned how living in a matchbox can significantly reduce their expenses and simplify their lives. And we're going to hear all about this movement and about tiny houses and hear from two people who are about to live in one. Monday at 9.
On the next Diane Rehm Show, the Friday News Roundup, President Obama travels to conservative states to pitch his middle-class economic plan. House Republicans drop a controversial abortion bill, and the FBI says there isn't enough evidence to charge Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson.
Join the conversation on the Diane Rehm Show this morning from 10 to noon after Charlotte Talks. Here on 90.7 WFAE, Charlotte's NPR news source.
It's Charlotte Talks on listener-funded 90.7 WFAE and 90.3 WFHE. I'm Mike Collins. We're talking about small business operations and starting a small business with Kelly Swick, who founded her own company called Queen of Oats, Glenn Berkins, who founded QCityMetro.com, where he is the editor and publisher, Julie Haack, president and owner of Donald Haack Diamonds, that's in the South Park area, and Jim Weiland, executive vice president of Charlotte Score. We have a great email question, which I was going to ask later, but it's a good time to ask it. Can someone please define small business? Because a small business can be one person. How big can it get before it's no longer a small business? Is it number of employees, annual revenue, or is it something else? Jim.
That's a good question because if you use the government's definition, you can go to $1 billion market cap. eBay started as a small business. So we look at a small business as less than 50 employees and revenues in $100,000 to $2 or $3 million.
Does it matter? Do the rules change if suddenly you flip into the big or the medium-sized business?
Absolutely. The thing about small business is there are no rules. And it's the dream and the work they put into it and the results that happen.
Glenn mentioned a second ago that whether or not you plan, as soon as you open the doors, things are going to go awry. You're going to have to throw the plan out because it's not going to be what you anticipated. And I'd like to hear from the three business owners here. What surprised them the most? What happened in the course of opening and running your businesses that you could not have anticipated? Glenn, you brought it up, so I'll start with you.
Well, I think the internet didn't crash my first day. I just thought when I launched the website, the entire internet would crash from people running to sign on. That didn't happen. I think the first day it was just me and my wife, and then the next day she dropped out, and
so people were not rushing to your door to get the news.
People are creatures of habit, and I suspect no matter what business you're in, unless you are very lucky, you have to work very hard to build an audience, to build a client base, to build customers, whatever. And I think that has been my biggest surprise, just how difficult it is to attract and keep loyal customers or loyal readers.
I would have to agree with that. I think, it's great to get that first customer and you think, oh, here we go. But to maintain that relationship with that particular customer and to get more and to continually get customers is difficult. That's always a challenge, and it's a challenge every day. You don't want to rest on your laurels thinking, oh, look I've got customers coming in. Mm-hmm. You may not have that customer tomorrow. You've got to make sure you've got them coming all the time.
And Julie, Donald Haack Diamonds was in business even long before you started working there, and you worked there for a while before you bought it. And so you probably knew most of everything about the business, but was there anything that surprised you once you took over?
Oh, sure. There were a lot of things I didn't know and could not have foreseen. The economic depression was one of them, and I knew how to run the business because I had helped run it for 5, 6, 7 years with my father. But then when my cash flow was down and my customers were not walking through the door anymore, I did not know how to run a business in those conditions. So I had to become very creative.
And you did what? I know you kind of shifted over toward different kinds of services, didn't you?
I did. I just expanded those. I increased our repair business because people weren't buying as many new diamonds or new rings. We were fixing them. And because the values had changed in gold and diamonds, I had to, increase my appraisal business. But I also saw people who needed to sell their jewelry, and they needed the cash just like I did. And I had people who had cash and did not want to put it anymore into the stock market because it was volatile. And so I was able to be the linchpin between those two, borrowing money from some of my wealthier customers and then using it to enable to buy the pieces that were being sold to me and then offering those below market. So I could stay competitive to the fewer customers who were walking through the door.
What I'm hearing Julie say is not only do you have to be smart and connected in terms of understanding your own business and the needs of your customer base, but also you have to be nimble and, more importantly, willing to change what has been a successful business model into something else because it doesn't work for whatever reason. Because maybe in her case, the economic downturn. How difficult is that for a small business person who gets into a business because this is what I want to do, and either because you find out your customers don't want you to do that, they want you to do this, or because economic times change or something changes and you have to make the change or go out of business?
It's very difficult. Small businesses fail
a lot.
60% of the time or better in the first 3 years. Now, small businesses is a big number, right? You gave the statistics. The individual owner has to be able to understand the environment that his business or her business is in. We talked about the recession, so the economic environment, the cultural environment. Glenn recognized the need. They have to understand where are people coming from relative to their needs and wants. So you have to constantly be researching your area. I'm working with a client currently who wants to open a restaurant. He's very attuned to how the eating habits are changing in Charlotte. He can tell you what's happening. So he's researching the environment that he wants to come into. But he brings a tremendous amount of experience, and he's a 5-star chef. So he understands that.
Forbes magazine recently listed 9 terrible reasons to start a small business. And I'm going to read some of these on the list and get your reactions to them, because I think there are sometimes things that people go into business thinking this is going to work because I have this idea or this reason. Number 1, you are running away from something. Not a good idea, like your job or your boss. You want to start a business, you want to get away from the boss. Not a good idea?
Not a good idea.
Why not?
Because you're going to have more bosses. Every client is your boss. Your vendors that provide your supplies are your boss. The government is a boss. You all of a sudden have all kinds of bosses.
So where did this idea of be your own boss come from?
Well, I think, too, being your own boss, I mean, also what goes along with that is the responsibilities.
There you go.
And more importantly, running away from something is not going to keep you in the game when the times are difficult. You have to have more inside than simply I was running away from something. You have to be going to something.
Number 2, bad reason to start a business, you want control. They say you may end up having less control.
I'd look to Kelly and Glenn.
I actually think I have a lot of control, and I think the problem is I don't want to lose that control. So delegating to others, having this control is what I like about having my own business.
I disagree with that one as well.
Okay. Here's one that I think I want to hear from Julie on because a lot of people think that every small business owner is suddenly rich. And, of course, if you operate a high-dollar diamond business, they automatically assume that you must be rich. And bad reason number 3 is you want to make millions.
Right. All my wealth is in my inventory.
And if that doesn't sell, you don't have anything, right?
That's correct.
You want to become a media darling. People think that they start a business, the media will be seeking them out. You're in the media. That's not true, is it?
Not true.
We don't care. You want to spend this one I absolutely don't get. Why would anybody open a business thinking that they're going to do that because they want to spend more time with their family?
What we tell startups is it's 24/7, 365. My parents owned a restaurant as a kid when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. They lived in it. I never wanted to go into a small business. I went to work for a large corporation, and I was in it too much.
What kind of hours do you put in, Vic?
Well, it's funny you said that, Jim, because I put down here actually as one of the reasons to start your own business, set your own hours. I wasn't saying that was why, but I was saying set your own hours. And then I said, yes, if your hours are 24/7. I mean, if that.
So what kind of hours do you work?
Well, you never not working, I feel like, except when I'm sleeping. I go, into the kitchen and bake, which was another thing. To find a kitchen was very difficult.
Right.
So you go in, you bake. In the morning, you've done some book work. Then you go bake. And then you come home and you've either got to go get customers, make phone calls, do book work. Bookkeeping is not my thing, but I've got to do it. All that kind of stuff. It really does. I was trying to think about that, and I was thinking, actually, I'm on all the time.
I woke up this morning at 2 a.m., and I started working, and I didn't stop until I got in my car to come here.
You've been up since 2 o'clock this morning?
I've been up working since 2 o'clock.
Give this man some coffee, please. Julie, you worked for other business. You worked as an employee before you came to Donald Haack and bought the business and became president and owner. How would you describe the difference in your life in terms of the kind of hours that you put into your job now as opposed to when you worked for someone?
I'm a pretty hard worker, just about all the time, no matter what I'm doing. But I set my own hours when I was a trainer in the Midwest years and years ago. But I had no idea that I would be, as Kelly said, 24/7. I'm always strategizing. I'm always thinking about the next trend or the next event or the next catastrophe or the next whatever, trying to prepare, trying to be, as you said, nimble. But I never stop thinking. So if you want to clock those hours, it is. You never stop.
A couple of more of the 9 terrible reasons to start a business. Your brother or your sister or your mother or your father wants to go into business with you, and they say that's not a good idea unless you're already a good partner in your real lives. You're passionate but have no direction. Just because you're passionate about something, does that mean it's going to make you're going to be a good business person in that area?
No. You have to have the passion, but you have to have the ability to self-start. Nobody's going to tell you it's time to go work the books or it's time to go cook in the kitchen. So to me, it's back to some of the other words we've used. You have to be a self-starter. You have to be, what's the word I'm looking for, Jim? Willing to do what you need to do based on some kind of, at least an internal clock, if you're not using a notepad or your computer or something else. You have to plan what you're going to do.
Final 2 items on this list from Forbes. You assume that you can get a bank loan. Why would anybody assume that in today's environment? I mean, they don't want to. I would think banks would be loath to risk money to a startup.
Right now in Charlotte, there are no loans going out to startups. Okay, there's loans going out to in business where they've proved that they can run the business, but a startup, bank loans aren't where it's at. So they have to look to other sources of investment. What we do very often is refer them to the SBA, Small Business Administration, who understands the whole investing market and where there might be funds they could get a hold of. But banks aren't making loans right now.
Make sure you keep your books up, too.
Yeah.
Because even they would want to know. They're going to want some numbers.
Well, that brings us to another thing, because a lot of people get into the business that they want to get into because they're really good at that aspect of the business, and you suddenly find yourself having to do all these other back office things that you know nothing about. Is it in your best interest to do what you do best? In your case, work with the product, whether it's cooking in the kitchen, designing new recipes, making it look good in the packaging, whatever that may be, and hire other people to do the other stuff if you can?
Simple answer, yes. Yes, to find somebody else to help you with the other. So if you're a very good financial business person and you have funds and you want to start a business that you've had some limited experience with, you could hire the person who's going to actually run the day-to-day business while you manage it. We tell them they have 3 people that they have to have on their team immediately: an attorney, an accountant, and an insurance broker. I would add to that, if they're comfortable, find a mentor. Doesn't have to be SCORE, doesn't have to be anybody, but somebody who they can bounce things off of.
Is the attorney more important for a startup because you have to get papers done for the state and the federal government so that you're legally operating your business from the state's point of view? Or is it also important for a long-term business to have an attorney available to them for things?
Well, as far as a startup is concerned, with technology, you could go in and do it all yourself. I don't recommend it. SCORE doesn't recommend it. There's so many traps that you can get into.
I get the impression, Kelly, that you did it yourself.
I did it myself. I did basically everything myself. Yeah, and I still am doing pretty much everything myself.
Glenn?
I did as well, but I'm looking to change that.
Okay.
I didn't do it myself. I have an awesome team. I built an awesome team, and so did my father. So my big challenge was to learn how to delegate, because there were people who did it better than I did. And I had to be able to embrace that.
But when you build a team, you have to have the revenue to support the team you're building, because they're not going to do it for free. So how do you know when you have sufficient revenue to do it? It's you would think that some people in business, when they start making money at their business, want to keep that money because they've worked so hard to start. But now they have to start paying some of that out to other people. That's got to be a difficult step to take, right?
Yes, it is.
How do you know when to do it?
Well, we help our clients using a financial spreadsheet. It's something we have. They can dump numbers in, so they can determine when they're going to see a profit. They can say, well, maybe I need to add an attorney for $1,000 a month or $1,000 a year, whatever. Mm-hmm. What happens when I do that? So we tell them, keep this worksheet going. It's dynamic. We all said, the day you open the doors, everything is new. It starts all over again. So keep it dynamic and watch. Watch is the best word I can use.
An accountant seems like a no-brainer, because even if you're good with numbers, they're good with the numbers and how they relate to the law. So is an accountant somebody you use on a day-to-day basis every time you add up the cash register, or is it something you use on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis to balance the books and keep you in check?
Well, what we recommend is a minimum have them help you balance the books on a regular basis and help you with your taxes. That's a minimum. Don't try to do your taxes yourself. Kelly sounds like she kind of does it herself.
You do, don't you?
I do. I'm going to be transitioning, though, into going to be needing some help.
I want to come back to the third leg of that support stool, and that is insurance broker, because that may surprise some people. We'll do that when we come back. It's Charlotte Talks on WFAE. Support for Charlotte Talks comes from WFAE members and the British International School of Charlotte, empowering individual achievement for students aged 2 through high school, hosting an interactive admissions open house. Engage with our curriculum. Details at britishschoolofcharlotte.org. It is Friday. It's the weekly news roundup on the Diane Rehm Show in 20 minutes at 10 o'clock, the National Hour First, in which they will talk about President Obama and his travels to conservative states to pitch his middle-class economic plan. House Republicans dropping a controversial abortion bill, and the FBI saying there isn't enough evidence to charge Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. A panel of journalists talks about that in the first hour, the International Hour second at 11. And if you'd like to join our conversation, you can get to us through email at charlottetalks@wfae.org, or search for WFAE on Facebook or Twitter. We're coming right back.
Morning Edition is everywhere.
Lourdes Garcia,
Ari Shapiro,
NPR News, Monrovia, Sao Paulo, Beirut,
London. Reporting from bunkers, streets, alleys, jungles, and deserts. But most importantly, we're wherever you are. Start your day with a trip around the world and wake up with Morning Edition from NPR News.
Join us for Morning Edition weekday mornings from 5 until 9 here on 90.7 WFAE and WFAE.org.
It's Charlotte Talks on WFAE and WFHE. I'm Mike Collins, along with Julie Haack, president and owner of Donald Haack Diamonds. Glenn Berkins is editor and publisher of QCityMetro.com. Kelly Swick is the founder and owner of Queen of Oats. It's a food company with her products now at Whole Foods. And how long did that take?
Well, actually, I think I applied when Davidson Farmers Market sent out the email. I jumped on that chance, so I applied. And in May, I was notified that I was invited to the local supplier fair. So then by the end of May, so it only took a month, they said you're in.
From the time you opened the doors to the time you got your product in Whole Foods took how long?
About a year and a half.
Okay. And that was not planned. That was not a goal.
No.
And Jim Weiland is with us. He's the executive VP of Charlotte Score, who gave us three people of a three-legged stool that you need to have available to you. A lawyer, an accountant, and an insurance broker. Now, that may surprise some people.
The reason for an insurance broker or insurance agent, we say broker because they can give you the better price usually by looking across the broad spectrum of insurance plans, is it depends on your business. I would guess Glenn has little risk doing what he does. Kelly has a lot of risk. Because it's food.
Glenn has little risk because it's not a physical product,
and he's not doing things that may cause harm to people.
Au contraire.
See, I don't know.
It would seem to me that you are putting information out there that may or may not be true.
I guess the biggest risk would be libel.
Yeah, libel.
And therefore, he would need to work with an insurance person on what type of liability he needs.
Okay.
So that's why we say that, because so many startups think they can use their personal insurance, put their own assets at risk, and the rest is history.
Now, Kelly, you're a one-woman show at the moment, pretty much. And Julie, Donald Haack Diamonds is not a one-woman show. You have we were voted in 2007 as one of the top 25 best places to work in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So obviously you have employees. I'd like both of you to talk about, and maybe Glenn should jump in here too, about the advantages of being a one-person operation over having to deal and handle and hire and supervise employees. Julie, let's start with you.
Well, the people that I have working with me, some of them have been with me for 15 years, and so they pretty much know what I'm going to say before I even say it. Mm-hmm. And it gives me the ability to make the final decision, but I'm a very hands-off, and I don't like to be a complete manager over anything. So, for example, when I was out this week sick, I was able to just call in and say, handle it, and they did, beautifully.
That's a luxury.
It is. It is.
It is a luxury. And I was just thinking that, if I were to get sick, things stop, basically. Mm-hmm. It just stops. So it's great to actually what I liked about this starting out this way is you learn every aspect of the business. From having to get the certified kitchen to, all the bookwork you have to do to getting your customers, to knowing your number, cash flow, time management, all of that. It's good to know all of those aspects of your business, but there comes a time when you want to expand and grow your business, and that time hopefully is coming soon so that I will need to expand out.
I don't know that you have, or that maybe you do have employees, Glenn, but I would think that you rely on freelancers more than employees.
Absolutely.
Talk about that dynamic.
Well, there is that element, the managing of the freelancers. It's difficult being small and not having people who are dedicated. When you have freelancers, they work on their own schedules. You can't say, I need you at this hour to go here and do that. You have to say, are you available at this hour to go here and do that? And so, that's the real challenge. I look forward this year to actually being able to get more help.
Julie makes money selling the product, the physical product in the store. You make money by actually selling the product that you're making. How does Q City Metro make money?
We sell ads. It's like every other media outlet.
But it's been difficult for newspapers, and you're essentially a newspaper, it's been difficult for newspapers to make that transition from the kind of money that they used to make by selling full-page ads in a daily paper to the kind of money they can make on a website. Maybe that's different for you because you were never a newspaper. You're a small startup. You weren't a gigantic big city paper at once, now trying to figure out how to make money on the Internet. Is it just as hard for you to make money on the Internet as it is for them?
Well, I don't need as much money. I make pennies on the dollar to compare it to what, say, the Charlotte Observer would make. But I don't, probably fractions of a penny per dollar, but I don't need as much. I don't have a building. I don't have all the overhead they have. So I would say it's easier in some ways for me, simply for that reason. My profitability threshold's much lower.
Now, we asked on Twitter and Facebook, we asked small business owners, what were your biggest challenges in opening your business? What are your challenges now? Here's some of the things that we've gotten back. Lydia on Facebook, my biggest challenge when I opened Beadlush was having no prior experience running a business. Now it's about reinventing retail in an Internet world. Are you getting a lot of questions from people at SCORE about how to survive or how to transition to this new paradigm?
Yes. A lot is relative. Our base is still startups. But people who are in business have started to come to us and say, I need to reinvent myself. I need to do something different. Can you help? So, and it's really as we've recovered from the recession, the startups are less because they aren't the people who are, I need to go do something. I'm not working, so I think I'll start a business, to more qualified startups. Mm-hmm. And obviously in business are qualified.
Some businesses have found if they have a unique and or a high-quality product, and they used to be one location in a storefront, the Internet has opened the world to them. Julie, are you using the Internet at all? Do you get any sales?
We are, and we have to have a good presence on there. Not that we sell over the Internet without at least talking to somebody or emailing them, whether they were a past customer or have moved. But there are very few people that that pick up the phone from our beautiful pictures on the Internet and say, I want that. And we say, okay, great, give us your credit card and send it out. But we do have to have a presence on there. It's very important.
Okay. Michelle on Facebook writes, I'm just starting my design business, MJ Creative, and I'd say the biggest hurdle is figuring out how to juggle it all as a one-woman show. Also, setting yourself apart and gaining new clients can be a challenge. Rachel on Facebook, my biggest challenge in opening Rachel Sutherland Communications, everybody's getting their plug in, was building up my client roster, a portfolio of successes, and trusting that it would work. I have learned after 5 years in business as a solopreneur, that's a new word, that I am at times my own worst enemy and I need to get out of my own way. Do you understand what she's saying there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are times when you think somebody else should be doing this part. This is really not my thing. Yeah, I understand that completely.
I'm looking for a mentor this year for that very reason.
Yeah.
Mike,
yeah, Julie.
Mike, I'd like to say, too, there's a point at which you've grown your business and you have to get out of the business and stop working on it as much as you start working over it. You're not in it. You're not working on it anymore. You need to start working the strategies and the directions and the larger planning.
Well, that leads us to something else, and we've talked about this on this program years ago, and that is many people get into a business because they love doing whatever it is. And as the business becomes successful and grows, they find themselves having to detach from doing what they loved to running the business, which is a whole different skill set and a whole different thing. If what you do is you love working with diamonds and working with customers, or you love working with oats and coming up with new recipes that help people who have gluten allergies and can't eat wheat, are you better off working for somebody else so you can keep doing that, what you love, as opposed to having to step back in 5 years and go, no, I got to do the books, I got to figure out where to place this ad, I've got to hire an employee, I've got to make sales calls. Give me an answer to that, if you can.
Well, we actually have a series of workshops that the purpose of it, it's called Simple Steps to Starting Your Business. And the actual purpose is to get the client that's attending the workshop to the point where they make a decision, go or no go. And part of that decision is a candid conversation with an experienced mentor or mentors that says, what is it you want to do? And if what they say is, I want to put tops on bottoms, that's what I want to do, then we will suggest that they ought to look at continuing to do it in a working for someone else's environment. We get negative reactions from that because people often feel like you're discouraging their dream. So you have to do it with decorum, and you're not telling them, you're making a recommendation. They think about it.
Michelle on Facebook, one of my biggest challenges when starting superstar careers was staying focused. Like most entrepreneurs, I suffer from bright, shiny things syndrome. I was trying to offer every service possible to everybody possible. My challenges now are scaling and automating my business as much as possible so I can have enough consistent cash flow to feel comfortable hiring a full-time web developer. It's a lot of responsibility to bring someone else into this. John on Facebook, I run Queen Charlotte's Pimento Cheese Royale. The biggest, most important thing I've learned through our first almost year of business is how vital brand awareness is. Promotion, not spammy emails and random stacks of business cards on a hair salon's counter, but creative, pavement-pounding, targeted, 24/7 gospel spreading isn't just valuable, it's essential. And naturally, you have to use all of the tools social media affords you, but old-fashioned, smiling, face-to-face contact is where it's at. Customers know when your heart's not in it. So get up early and tell the world why your new gizmo matters and have fun with it and never stop. I'm exhausted reading that. I'm exhausted. Let's talk about getting the word out, because most small businesses can't afford even to advertise in Q City Metro.
Actually, they probably could.
So how do you get the word out?
Well, for me, initially when I was at the farmers markets, that's what I like, is the one-on-one with people. I love that part of it, and I like educating people about nutrition because I do have a degree in nutrition. But getting out there and actually...
and your husband's a doctorate in this,
He
don't
has
you?
a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, so it's sort of all in the family.
Yeah.
But the passion, I think, with what I do comes out. But it's important every day to get out there and try to, pound the pavement is exactly what you're doing. How
valuable is social media? Because that seems to be the buzzword everywhere. If I just get on Facebook or Twitter and people will follow me and I'll be a huge success.
Well, you have to be consistent with it. I think you can't let it go stale. You have to be consistently going out there and putting things on Facebook, knowing that you're active, what's going on, keeping your business, up front.
In my case, social media is vital. It used to be that people went out looking for news and information. Now they expect that news and information to come to them where they are. And increasingly, they're on social media. So if it doesn't pop up on Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or whatever they're looking at.
So you're giving them just enough information to drive them to you to read the whole story, where they will be exposed to the advertising, which makes the money that allows you to continue operating the business.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing with the cash flow. You've got to have enough money to come in to advertise. It's like that vicious cycle.
Yeah, what we tell our clients is you have to have a website. You have to be on one or more of the social media because that's what people expect. Whether or not, and then, as Kelly said, you got to keep it vibrant.
You have a high-end product, Julie, and I know you've advertised for years. I'm just wondering how important social media is to a business like yours.
It's still important. I'm still trying to sell diamonds to the younger crowd, and so when they are excited and exuberant about receiving a brand new engagement ring, they get on social media and they tell everybody. And so we just pick up on that, and it sort of piggybacks off of that. So we do the Facebook, the website, the PR, the advertising in radios and magazines. We do a lot of marketing right where we are, locally here in the Moorcroft Shopping Center. And I'm also involved in the community a great deal, like my father was.
Well, that was going to be my next question, and I'll ask all of you, and I'll start with you, Julie. How important, is it a must that you become a member of a service club or the Chamber of Commerce or something like that?
It is a must for me from two different angles. One, I have to be present in the community. I have to give as much as I take. That's extremely important. That's something I learned from my parents years and years ago. If you don't embrace the community, they will not embrace you. And if they know you and they know your warm personality and you're honest and you have integrity and you won the ethics awards, then they know you and they trust you and they'll come to you.
She's absolutely right. You do have to give back, and you have to be out in the community, whether you belong to the chamber or not. You have to be out there in the community, visible.
What I'm hearing is that when you say this is a 24/7 thing, it's more than that. It's exhausting.
It is.
And Bill emails, nothing happens until the sale is made. Like it or not, to be successful in your business, you have to be a salesman.
Yes.
Some people just aren't. They love what they do. They're good at what they do, but they're not salesmen. Do you hire somebody then to be the salesman if that's the case?
If you can't do it, we tell them you have to be able to do all the hats, and we've talked about all the hats. But the toughest hat is sales.
Finally, how do you get a mentor? I know that you can go to the score, and there are other people that do this, but how do you get a mentor? How do you know that mentor is right for you and your needs? Quickly.
It's got to be you telling the person what your needs are, them listening. A good mentor listens.
Jim Weiland is Executive Vice President of Charlotte Score. He brings all those skills from, I think, 43 years at IBM to the table here. Julie Haack, President and owner of Donald Haack Diamonds. Glenn Birkins, editor and publisher of QCityMetro.com. Check him out. Kelly Swick, founder and owner of Queen of Oats. Thank you all for the hour.